So here's the question. If some people define atheism as just a lack of belief, why do I still say it requires faith? Now it does sound contradictory, but let me break it down why I say such things. So this is actually part 3 of a response series where I've been addressing critiques around a previous video titled Steelman on Atheism, where this along with many other points are being addressed. In my original video, I stated, when one claims an atheist has faith, it's illogical as you cannot accept the lack of belief in something. Simple, right? It's a stalemate of what some individuals who claim atheism doesn't require faith tell me. But that doesn't mean I agree with it, because simply, if you stated it is a claim, which you accept to believe. And I'll detail more on that later in the video. But this point led to a response by John Jones, who had a pretty strong take on this idea. And yeah, I know this is like the 3rd response in this series, but there are like plenty more critiques to cover based on his positions. He had way more than the others. They would come later. But I'm taking my time with these responses. And also I kind of like video editing a little bit, so it's kind of fun doing these videos. John responded with this.
Yes, that's correct. It is illogical to say that we have faith in atheism because atheism is the lack of faith. The theist is the one claiming that something exists. The atheist is denying that claim. Before the theist, everyone was technically an atheist. I can understand the argument to state that an agnostic would be the default argument, because agnostic means unknowing, and an atheist is someone who doesn't believe in a god. But that makes it very clear that everyone was an agnostic atheist. They were unknowing of a god, and they didn't believe in a god. You can also be an agnostic theist. You can be unknowing of the god, but still believe that there is a god out there.
So first of all, there are a lot of points brought up in his sayings, but let me address the main contention first, faith. Now it's obvious we have a disagreement on the definition of the word faith. Now if you haven't watched the previous video, I alluded to the issue with people having different definitions on words and saying how another person is wrong for not using that said definition. Yeah, I advise you to watch if you want. Do it! It'll give you a basic understanding on this overview, first of all, I guess. Yeah, but just to note, if 2 people define a word differently, how can another say they're wrong if not use their said definition? Now for the word faith, I'm using my definition of how I describe in the videos. Now it's clear that John and some other atheists and I disagree on how we define faith. Now in the original video, I was using the Google Oxford Languages definition, which is basically a fancy way of saying Google, which defines faith as complete trust or confidence in someone or something. The Oxford English Dictionary gives a similar distinction: firm trust or belief in the reliance upon something. Now I understand why some atheists dislike the term faith, especially because it's often associated with religion or belief without evidence, which some atheists do not like to associate themselves with. But this definition of faith isn't limited to religious context. For example, I don't use the term cisgender to describe myself, even though it's a term defined in the Oxford Dictionary since like 2015. Now, according to that definition, cisgender does describe someone whose gender identity corresponds with their sex assigned at birth. But just because I don't use that term for myself doesn't mean that definition is wrong. I just have a reason for not using that word. So it's not that the definition I give for faith is inherently wrong or just tied only to religion. It's about how people choose to apply it. If atheists don't like the word faith being associated with their position, that is up to them. Do not use the word, honestly. They might have some personal definition or just stick to the second definition in Google, not knowing it's basically a subset of how you define the first definition. Now he did bring up something interesting that some atheists who claim they don't have beliefs say.
Yes, that's correct. It is illogical to say that we have faith in atheism because atheism is the lack of faith.
Now I can address the same point about how everyone having a different definitions about each point, but for this Steelman in here, I'm using definitions I provided earlier. Just note that. If some individuals don't say they have faith in atheism, I'm curious why they might state this. Do you not have confidence in your position? The position that you lack the belief in a God? And no, this question is applied if you define atheism as solely just a lack of belief in a God. And as I stated earlier, faith isn't some religious only source from how I'm using or the source that's being used. But if you have your own personal definitions, I mean, I guess you can find a word, anything you want, as long as you have a source to it, I guess, or without the source, honestly. But you can't expect everyone to read your mind if there seems to be little or no source supporting it, or if you don't tell someone where you're getting these definitions from. Now next, defining atheism as just a lack of belief doesn't cover the whole picture in my view. Theism can be defined as just a lack of belief too. Now atheism will be the lack of belief there is a God, while theism will be the lack of belief there is no God. But no, you can't just say theism definition is a double negative and therefore an error. You have to acknowledge the difference between believing there is no God and lacking to believe there is no God. So there will be a difference between believing there is a God and lacking the belief there is no God. Now, similar distinctions would exist in concept with atheism, but instead of atheism, there'd be like theism with strong and weak theism, or implicit and explicit theism, and etc. For example, Graham Obi sums this up perfectly in one of his discussions. He states, in particular, it seems to me to be a mistake to use a distinction between strong atheism and weak atheism to subsume agnosticism under atheism. Strong atheists reject the claim that there are gods, while weak atheists refrain from accepting the claim that there are gods. For if we accept that there is the distinction between strong atheism and weak atheism, we should surely accept that there is a similar distinction between strong theism and weak theism. Strong theists reject the claim that there are no gods, while weak theists merely refrain from accepting the claim that there are no gods. And then we shall have it that agnostics are both weak atheists and weak theists. What Opie is saying here is important. Blurring agnosticism into atheism oversimplifies key differences between theism and the non-belief. Now this kind of picks up to the whole agnosticism and atheism, and is exactly why I don't subscribe to labels such as agnostic theist or agnostic atheist. I mean, to me, these terms are kind of often poorly defined and don't have some type of consistent meanings. I mean, if you want to understand my views in a little more detail, you can check out the video I made a while ago of Atheism, the Belief There Is No God, where I go in deeper with these distinctions. But for a simple overview, based on my understanding, some individuals that say that there is no God will be agnostic atheism, while claiming to not know and not believing there is a God will be an agnostic atheist. But if someone doesn't know but believes there is no God, wouldn't that be an agnostic atheist too? Wouldn't everyone be an agnostic theist also if there are two definitions of agnostic theist? I mean, I can be unknowing of the God but still believe there is a God out there. Or I can be unknowing of the God but lack the belief there is no God. It is kind of confusing. So when I talk about atheism requiring faith, it's not about some religious only faith. It's about having trust or confidence in the position that there are no gods, or even trust or confidence in the position that you lack the belief that there are gods. If atheists don't want to call that faith, that is fine. But it doesn't change the core idea. Confidence in a belief or lack of belief is still confidence. So that's all I got. So do you think atheism require faith in some form, or is it purely just lack of belief? So no confidence required, period. Now, if you got something say so, got some interesting takes, put in the comment section. I'm interested again, but please, rational thoughts. I'm not doing no straw man. I'm not doing the ad homs. That's a waste of my time. But if you want to dive in deeper into these concepts, you can check out my other videos, and I should put it somewhere here in the video, but that's all I got. So this is basically in the screen ramble right now. The next video should be up next. I have 2 videos that should be on now, but another video should come up next. So hit the like or dislike. That's all I got. I mean, in the video, take care. Cool. All right, I'm done.